One percenters, welcome back to 1424 basketball training, where the goal is to take 14 minutes, 24
Have
seconds,
either been really
or 1% of your day to get better. In today's video, greatest peaks, episode 15, Steph Curry.
really tall?
Let's go. Sorry about all that. Still learning how to use the software. Someone mentioned to me the LeBron one I did is gone. I'm having issues with YouTube. I got a video banned or striked or a warning yesterday, and I was watching a 5'8" guy tries to dunk and reacting to it, trying to teach you guys how to jump, how to analyze a workout video and stuff like that, but it got taken away. I don't know why, so forgive me. I'm learning how to use this thing, man, every single day. So anyways, let's get into it. Greatest peaks, Steph Curry.
Or really, really athletic. Every other player in this series is at least 6'5", except for this guy, Wardell Stephen Curry. Curry's rightfully considered the greatest shooter in NBA history, but just how good can someone be with outlier shooting? How much did his lack of classic athleticism hold him back on defense? And was his radical offensive approach so game-changing that it made him the most valuable offensive player of all time?
The most valuable offense. For the Bulls. I'm usually a LeBron hater, but I actually think if it's just like offensive player, it actually might. I would think LeBron. LeBron has a gigantic impact on a
game. Who was
game.
the best at his best? We start at the NBA merger and go through the best multi-year stretches, examining the legends who provided the most on-court impact. These are the greatest peaks.
I liked it, but I was more interested in basketball at the time. So, it was more my sport, kind of.
Curry.
I was kind of better at it. It's basketball, and I wanted to practice more on it and try to make some pros if I have a chance.
You usually like the things that you're good at, and usually it takes some time to get through it. Sometimes if you naturally are gifted, you'll like it right away because you're good at it.
The other offensive greats we've looked at in this series found a way to pressure the rim while also getting to their sweet spots. Kareem had his sky hook, Jordan had mid-range pull-ups, but Curry short-circuited the entire system. He didn't park himself in the most valuable spot like Shaq, and he didn't charge toward the basket like LeBron. Instead, he turned the three-point line into his own personal layup. From 2016 to 19, Curry made nearly 50% of his open threes. That's the equivalent of a 73% two-point shot, efficiency that only incredible rim finishers can generate. But from 2016 to 19, Curry made nearly 50%
48. Wow.
Of his open threes. That's the equivalent of a 73% two-point shot, efficiency that only incredible rim finishers can generate. But instead of being limited to the restricted area to produce this kind of efficiency, he could manufacture his long-range layups from all over the court.
Three-point layups.
Real-life video game. A custom player with 99 shooting who started spamming threes from 28 feet away like there was a glitch in the Matrix. It was only slightly better for defenders when they were a touch closer. At 4 to 6 feet away, he made 43% of his threes, the equivalent of a mere 65% from two-point range. Other players have shot at comparable percentages, but Curry set himself apart with the obscene volume at which he could manufacture these attempts. It starts with his release speed, which is the quickest that ESPN Sports Science has ever clocked, around 0.4 of a second on some of these shots. In less time than it takes to, say, basketball, Curry ends his dribble and has the shot out of his hands. So instead of using verticality to keep his shot away from defenders, he used speed, so they can't close the distance horizontally. This is how he can get his shot off from all over the court, even when guarded by bigger defenders. Curry even has crazy release speed in catch-and-shoot situations, taking speed, so they can't close the distance horizontally.
How do I move
this
my
is how
head?
he can get his shot off from all over the court, even when guarded by bigger defenders. Curry even has crazy release speed in catch-and-shoot situations, taking around 2/3 of a second to grab a pass and turn it into a shot. And this could be even faster on perfect passes because he tried to catch it while he was squared up to the basket, ready to shoot.
0.46.
By the way, his dad, Dell, also had some lightning-quick releases back in the 90s, although at 6'2",
0.45.
Steph was even shorter, so his release speed was even more important. Another reason he's able to generate so many of these quality threes is his range. He's comfortable shooting his normal shot out to at least 30 feet, which means there are a few hundred square feet on the court where an open Steph Curry three is highly efficient offense. There have been scientific breakdowns of this as well, and the key to his long-range accuracy is minimal knee bend, which limits the variability in his shot mechanics. This creates a consistent energy transfer off the floor, where Curry flexes his wrist harder at the end of the movement to control the distance, giving him an incredibly stable shot from well.
Okay. Oh man, I hate getting into the weeds. Shot speed is important, but it's not as important as he's making it sound. The number one reason that Curry's effective is his accuracy. And you have to think about evolution of the game and how it's evolved. The whole court is like the feeding ground if you're thinking about the jungle, and everybody's trying to feed at the watering hole, which is like the hoop. You can go to the hole at different times when there's no people there. You can, if you're a bird, you can fly in. If you have a long trunk, you can go there earlier. If you're big, you're just going to sit around at the watering hole all day long. Like, hopefully this analogy makes sense, but there's always room to back up on the court. So if you got really, really proficient at just somebody inbounding you the ball and you shooting it at 90 feet with relative accuracy, in this case, you only need to be about 35% from 90 feet because nobody's ever going to guard you back there. So if you're shooting at half court, which is only 45 feet or so, if you can hit that at a third rate, nobody's going to guard you back there. And so evolution will happen where players will move further and further. And as this happens, the spacing on the court will change. So release speed is important only if you're contested. You can always back up. So release speed, release height, all of these things change all the time. I think I did a video about efficiency and stuff like that. What are you optimizing for? Right, so knee bend, all of that stuff, it's important, but I feel as of late, especially, a lot of people ask me, like, how far should I bend my knees and all this stuff like that. Oh, maybe I'm just extra annoyed with these same generic questions and people just blanket statement answers. Flick your wrist harder.
Beyond the line. Another skill that separated Steph from so many great shooters was his handle. His dribbling sets up so many of these shots by helping him pro for superior.
Again, you don't need to dribble if you have to think about like things that if you take it to the extreme, you don't need to dribble if you're at half court. Like a lot of players don't dribble. Klay Thompson takes one dribble. A lot of times you don't need to dribble. So the ability to get off a shot while dribbling a bunch of times on your own is a great skill to have. But with Steph Curry, he's average to below average NBA athleticism. So he struggles very, very rapidly in the one-on-one late in game when they put a longer, Andrew Wiggins, Andre Iguodala type on him. He can't get his shot off very easily, a clean look. So the easiest way for him to get a clean look is just to start even further back.
Your shooting spots on the floor. He had all the building blocks of a great ball handler. He loved little in and outs like this. This one creates a ton of space into the step back, and it turns into free throws. And he had the full arsenal of through the legs, behind the back crossovers, or sharp crosses in front of his body to shake defenders. He liked to throw combinations. A second behind the back bounce buckles Kevin Durant and leads to a layup. And this was more audacious, an in and out into the behind the back in traffic, and the sweet finish for an and one.
Yeah, it works every time.
He blended hesitations with sharp, hard dribbles, staying over his center of gravity to accelerate in any direction. Steph didn't really lead.
Steph Curry makes so many of these shots. Like, if this were any other player that were to dribble this much, you would think that they're a ball hog.
And the sweep to shake defenders.
So perception is big, man.
Second behind the back bounce buckles Kevin Durant and leads to a layup.
Okay, that's a nice quick move here. Dribble and around.
And the sweet finish for an
oh, not this one. The next one.
Yeah, it works every time.
He blended hesitations with sharp, hard dribbles.
How many dribbles is that?
Center of gravity to accelerate in any direction. Steph didn't really lean much on these moves, keeping weight in both feet for quick changes of direction after his dribble, which meant he could do this on the run right there.
Keep in mind, Kevin Love locked him up for a little bit,
and create a little opening from deep.
Kevin Love ain't that fast.
The threat of these pull-ups from anywhere opened up his drives. He looks at the hoop and brings that right hand toward the ball like he's going to shoot, which fakes out James Harden and sets up penetration into the paint. And sometimes he could lift defenders off their feet by merely looking at the basket. Kevin Love lunges at him, which gets Curry free, but again, he can't finish it. Steph's small
great
stature.
Team D there. Ooh.
Made finishing in traffic a tricky endeavor. He destroys Gerald Henderson, but another wing sliding over alters his shot. This time he uses that fake step back by looking at the hoop, but he sees traffic in the lane and pulls up early, which ends up in a rejection from behind.
So like all of these
could be an effective counter. Love crowd.
All of these where you can't finish it and they're just forcing them off the line. Like the greater players can get their shot off on the wing and then to the rim and finish. Steph Curry's obviously gotten a lot better at finishing.
Crowds him so tightly he only needs a first step, and a soft banker from about 8 feet does the trick. Curry wasn't lightning quick, but with defenders so far out worried about his shot, he could get a step, and once he turns the corner here, he picks it up for a long-distance scoop. Most attackers take an additional dribble in these spots to explode upwards, but he couldn't win verticality contests, so he relied on ambidextrous touch. These longer, higher-arcing layups aren't quite as easy as taking it all the way to the cup, but Curry's outlier hand-eye coordination helped him convert these kinds of finishes regularly.
Very, very hard to quantify how fast or how good his hand-eye coordination is.
Wasn't a second defender.
So it might be marketing about Curry. It might be we like him because he's average height, average build. Very, very hard to quantify how good someone's hand-eye coordination is.
Let him attack guards and flip up little shots like this. And some of these were just incredible finishes, making circus shots look like no big deal. These could even work against shot blockers, a crossover into a shot fake that freezes the defender briefly and sets up the huge teardrop off the glass.
That's a ridiculously hard shot.
This is similar to what we saw from Larry Bird in episode 4, where creative, adaptive skill offsets a lack of verticality. Curry.
So like right here, this one, again, like this is a ridiculously hard shot. You just shake your head like, dude made it. This one against Steven Adams, still super hard. That's Steven Adams guard him all the way out there.
Similar to what we saw from Larry Bird.
Stops, stays on his hip, disciplined. Then you get the second help, just jumping past him, seeing if he can hang in the air and actually finish that. He could have went all the way to the other side to reverse with the right hand.
Creative, adaptive skill
Missed
offsets
it.
a lack of verticality. Curry brings the ball
Like
from
that one.
the defender and his body, and has
Up with the left and then
concentration to
come
take
around to the
face and
right.
still finish. Since defenses couldn't give Steph any airspace on ball screens, big men often switched onto him, so when he was able to get a step, he could use his body to protect himself from larger shot blockers. This came in 2 forms.
Like, this is a lot of dribbles.
Since defenses couldn't give Steph any airspace on ball screens, big men often switched
1,
onto him,
2,
so when he was able to get a
3,
step, he could
4,
use his body
5,
to protect
6,
himself from
7,
larger
8.
shot blockers.
8 dribbles.
This came in 2 forms. He could either angle back into the path of the defender, or when a shot blocker was in pursuit, he could decelerate and create contact. Despite weighing around 190 pounds, he could take it right at much bigger players sometimes, and these moments where he embraced physicality on hard drives not only helped him finish, but gave him a respectable free throw rate for someone who relied so much on shooting and ball skills. Curry's bag of tricks made him a pretty good rim finisher, and an especially good one for a point guard. Tony Parker is the historical gold standard among little guys, but Steph wasn't too far off in terms of volume or efficiency.
I mean, if you want to compare the dude as the greatest of all time offensive player, why just compare him to point guards?
Sometimes he'd mix in mid-range shots, stopping on a dime on one of these drives, but only about 10% of his offense came off of 2-pointers outside of 10 feet like this. Curry's style, organic.
He's small, he doesn't jump high, and he doesn't have a high release point. That's why he doesn't go in the mid-range with jumpers. Mid-range, typically you got to jump and wait, and you got to jump to elevate, and the ball's got to be away for you to kind of get that vertical separation. All the best players can kind of figure out how to angle off. They can square in the air. They can shoot higher. But mid-range is kind of a secret. Guys that get in the mid-range typically pass or drive all the way or hit a floater. So Curry, you won't see him pulling too many mid-ranges.
Bypass the mid-range,
Regular
because he was either
mid-range.
punching for threes, half of his offense came from downtown, or driving by defenders who chased him far away from the basket. Steph took three-point hunting to a new level, becoming more dangerous after passing it, which brings us to the fourth and final reason he generated so many great attempts: his off-ball movement. Many great shooters run around without the ball, but Curry took the art to a new level. His most notable contribution to the field was the relocation shot, where he'd pass it and then immediately run out to the three-point line for a catch-and-shoot triple.
Those are stupid.
Being so dangerous with a live dribble made so many of these possible. He could attack off.
I mean, he changed the whole game. Like,
off the bounce for a pull-up or finish into traffic, but Steph passed it so we could just keep looking around for.
He changed the whole game, and there's a whole system kind of that developed around outside shooting because of Curry.
Being so dangerous with a live dribble made
Like this pass and relocate. This is like a little exit screen on this backside with Klay Thompson. So you pass to the wing and you curl around.
so many of these possible. He could attack off the bounce for a pull-up or finish into traffic, but Steph
so you see that pretty regular nowadays.
For higher percentage shots, even without the ball. Remember, big men often switched out onto him, and they weren't used to clinging to their marks after a pass, and those brief lulls created more 24-foot layups for the Human Torch. Of course, Curry had all the classic off-ball routes too, curling off screens right into a bomb, and he was a master at using picks, walking defenders right into his teammate and jutting out the other side for open looks. When teams overplayed the top side to take away the three, he had incredible feel for slipping back door. And then a minute later, that back door sets up a counter cut back out to the three-point line, and that's just wrong. If you're interested in more Curry cuts and the power of off-ball movement, there's an entire video about it on this channel.
Remember when I talked about this game is more like football than basketball, especially as of late, as the game keeps evolving, your ability to score off the ball or get the ball off the ball, do things without dribbling, it becomes increasingly important. And not only that, the game, the quality and the skill of each player has to rise. You have to have a playmaker. So when somebody has the ball, they're essentially the quarterback. And Curry, he's the number one receiver. He can stop route, he can curl route, he can do an out, he can do a fade. Okay, you just have to catch the ball, and then once you catch the ball, obviously you got to make the shot. So players like Curry that get a lot of touches, it's very, very taxing on the team as a defensive unit as a whole, and especially as the individual has to chase them all over the place. But you have to have a relentless motor to pass, cut, screen, pass, cut, relocate, shoot, run around. His greatest attributes probably his stamina.
In addition to having
and maybe his motor to come and get this ball back.
Every off-ball move in the book, Steph just never stopped moving.
There we go.
Which basically made him a threat to score all the time. And because he ran around so much, Curry was an all-time great endurance athlete, training not just his lungs, but his nervous system to be able to stroke these shots on autopilot, even with fatigued legs. Despite this atypical approach, all of this made him one of history's great scorers. And Curry authored the greatest scoring regular season ever, becoming the only player in the three-point era to lead the league in scoring volume and in scoring efficiency. Of course, the possessions where Curry wasn't scoring had an enormous effect as well, because Steph required unique defensive attention that the league...
Yeah, the league has switched up the whole game because of Curry, and he's changed a whole generation. So as in terms of impact on the future of the game, Kobe, LeBron, Curry's definitely up there next.
Had never seen.
Yao Ming changed it up for all the Asians. Jeremy Lin. Ooh, so if you guys are trying to improve your game, right, think about what areas you need to improve. Right, focus. Where focus goes, energy flows. My internet is lagging out. Paid extra money to get the higher internet.
After his record-setting regular season in 2016, Curry hit a rough patch in the playoffs, quite literally, straining his MCL. He returned a few weeks later, and while his numbers were still
come on, internet.
good, they were a step down from his blazing regular season performance. The Cavs wanted to be physical with Curry in the finals, bumping him away from the ball whenever they had the chance, with the intention of wearing him down.
Yep.
Big men chipped him when he ran by, and Curry's man harassed him while nearly ignoring the on-ball action.
Chipping, just like in football.
The goal was to take away Steph's threes and force his teammates to make them. And these Curry rules of physically face-guarding him while a second defender also put a body on him led to 11 fewer touches per game for Steph, denting his scoring volume in the process.
So, he can't get open by himself.
They jumped his screens hard, or simply...
So, that's like a one-on-one, getting stuck on an island. And you see this one with LeBron just chasing him all over the place. There's no way he's going to get open off of LeBron unless they're running multiple screens for him.
Led to 11.
So LeBron just fights through that one, denies that first pass. He's still locked in, fighting through there. Okay, they're holding up here. They're zoning him off. He comes across. There's no way Curry's getting this ball.
When Curry had.
And so if you can't fight it and isolate and do your little Kobe or MJ one-on-one stuff late in the game, it's like you're just getting shut out. The quarterback's never going to look your way again.
At the ball, they jumped his screens hard or simply trapped him, so he was forced to give it up. And this led to wide open shots. But Steph's teammates shot a chilly 28% from downtown with him on the court in the finals.
Yep.
By the way, other teams mimicked these tactics in the ensuing years, and Curry responded by gaining some muscle.
So the difference between regular season and postseason, you can strategize and game plan and discipline and build in the schemes
to help absorb this kind of physical load. So that Cleveland defense had an effect, but Steph also lost some of his rhythm and lateral quickness by playing through pain and some stiffness after that injury, and his normal ability to punish big men on some of these switches was noticeably absent at times in that series. He wasn't sharp handling some of those Cavalier traps, throwing a few lazy passes, and turnovers were a problem for him in general.
Can't get on Tristan Thompson.
He could be a bit sloppy at times, and his dribbling aggression came with some risks. Whether this...
If you're playing against a bigger, taller, longer, physical. You can't dance on him, and Curry just dance and shifts. You have to be able to just make one move, jab, and go, and hopefully, he doesn't pin your shit to the backboard. But you got to be able to make one hard move, or maybe one hard move and then a counter move, and then go, and then come to a jump stop or some type of, physical type game, and Curry just lacks that.
This was more rust or game planning. Curry's playoff scoring wasn't quite as otherworldly as his regular season stampedes, which still made him an all-time level scorer, just not an outlier. So much of defending Curry is about what's happening away from the action, and that kind of defensive attention leads to open shots for the Warriors. This is Curry's legendary gravity, pulling extra defenders into his orbit even when he didn't have the ball. And this is a sizable part of his offensive impact, drawing the defense away from his teammates as they freak out about his shooting. The price to pay for devoting so many resources to stopping Steph's scoring was wide open layups at the hoop while defense is fixated on Curry. And people often point out that these defenders are merely confused, which is true because guarding Curry creates confusion. The margin for error is minuscule. Sometimes it's not even confusion.
You will give up some of those because it's just like small old breakdowns.
The Jazz devote the entire weak side to keeping an eye on Curry, and even with 3 defenders, they will concede a Draymond Green triple before losing Steph.
I'll give it to Draymond Green any day.
Some gravity is more subtle. LeBron would normally be closer to the block on the weak side, but he's whispering sweet somethings in Steph's ear in the corner. Here's some relocation gravity, where none of these defenders are even thinking about closing out to Klay Thompson, one of humanity's best shooters of the round ball.
See, it looks very bad in highlights, but you have to understand, I've told you guys before, right? It's about risk management. Like, how much do you risk? Like, what you're just valuing it, and you're just weighing it differently, and if the coach decides that's the game plan, that's the game plan. Stick to the game plan.
And sometimes defenders start anticipating what to do, and that leads to more layups. These kinds of plays are exactly how a so-called jump shooting team can lead the league in field goal percentage at the rim. We noted last episode how Curry made life easier for Durant, and nothing symbolizes this better than the second quarter of the 2017 finals, where Curry parted the seas for him not once, but twice in transition. Steph's shooting accuracy changed the rules on the fast break, where defenders prioritized him over guarding the ball at times. The traditional approach of sprinting back to the paint didn't work with him because they ended up leading to practice shots. Reggie Miller was the first player to regularly run to the three-point line in transition, but Curry couldn't be given any airspace from inside 30 feet, so he could find cracks to exploit when defenses weren't set. This should be a layup here because Durant prioritizes Curry, but he also loses contact with Steph, and so it's a super efficient open 3. This is exactly why you'll see defenders run to the line with Steph, leaving the paint wide open for a ball handler. You'll notice Klay has a gravitational pull on defenders too, and this made the two of them so difficult to guard as a tandem, and particularly in screening actions, where defenders are still accustomed to chasing Thompson around screens, and any brief lapse leaves one of the 2 best shooters ever uncovered.
I love my old teammates, and this is literally what happened to our team. We had some crazy good shooters.
Here, Curry turns this cut
we
into
would
a
blow
screen.
teams out all
His
the
man
time.
keeps going to Klay, and the often stationary James Harden is left sealed off, and it's a layup. When defenses wisen up to his back picks like this, Curry can then fake these screens, slipping out to his personal ATM for some more cash. So then defenders remind themselves, always stay with Steph, and that glues defenders to him while his teammates practice more layups. He was also a nasty little screener because smaller players tend to get away with additional contact and movement as part of their natural grappling away from the action. Oh, by the way, Curry could pass too. While his teammates were usually piling up assists from his off-ball movement, he could send it home himself for wide open layups, and too wide open, some might say. Steph's combination
JaVale McGee
meant he could flow from a cut to a drive
That's a nice
to a
push
kick
off
out to
onto
feed his
Manu.
teammates. And his release speed helped him turn an off-the-dribble threat into a quick delivery for 2. All of his supergiant gravity in transition opened up.
For Curry to be really effective, you have to have a bunch of smart and willing passers all around him.
Passing lanes as well. And it was the same
So Sean Livingston, Draymond Green, Andre Iguodala, Klay Thompson.
story setting up for a deep pull-up. 3 Jazz are pulled into his orbit, and it's high percentage offense at the hoop. Curry had good vision in general. He's probing for a pull-up, but snaps off a live dribble pass instead, and he hit a bunch of these little creases in the middle of the floor in transition. Here's another quick trigger pass off the bounce. This time he whips it left-handed, although Klay wasn't really in the mood for a layup apparently, so it turns into a right-handed drive and kick from Curry. Kick-out passes were actually a bit of an adventure for him because of how small he was. He couldn't throw it over the top, so deflections were an issue, and when he probed deeper, size could swallow up his passing angles and clog his outlet valves. When he kept his dribble alive and had cleaner sight lines, these turned into open 3s. But he could also dribble himself into a forest of trees where he couldn't really see the best pass The top of the key is wide open here, and yet it's another deflection. He could get into the paint and find laydown passes when help came over, but accuracy could also be a problem on some of these deliveries. Some of Steph's passing at the rim was a bit wild like this. Note this was a no-look attempt, and Curry mixed in his fair share of lookaways to make up for that lack of passing height.
When I talk about passing, right, what makes a great pass? Right time, right type, right target. A lot of these you can see Curry can see it. He has it at the right time. He just couldn't pull off. He couldn't execute it and pass it to the right target.
It also helps that he varied his deliveries.
So sometimes it's low, sometimes it's wild, sometimes it's behind or late.
Hook passes.
Like this little left-handed hook pass. It's a little nice little shovel there.
Some of these were bold ideas. This is a Magic Johnson heater past J.R. Smith's ear, and this play shows reflexes and court awareness, spinning to find a teammate in tight quarters. However, some bold ideas bordered on reckless, throwing errant behind the back passes, or just wavering in.
I mean, that didn't even look that bad to Curry. I mean, for me.
This play shows reflexes and court awareness, spinning to find a teammate in tight quarters. However, some bold ideas bordered on reckless, throwing errant behind the back passes, or just wavering into sloppiness on basic deliveries,
that wasn't
leading
reckless.
to turnovers.
That was reckless.
Out
That
of
was
spread pick
sloppy.
and roll, he could deliver most passes. This is a basic strong side help off the shooter to pass away. And here's a skip pass where the weak side defender slides over to help, and it's another Draymond 3. It was actually rare for Curry to get downhill with this classic 2-on-1 because he usually just took a 3 against coverages like this. He could certainly hit the opposite side shooter.
Because he doesn't have that little mid-range right there. He doesn't have the explosion in one step.
Downhill with this classic 2-on-1 because he usually just took a 3 against coverages.
He doesn't have the explosion. He doesn't have enough strength to get through here, and doesn't have enough height to jump over. And he doesn't have that secondary two-motion type jump shot.
He could certainly hit the opposite side shooter. But it was more common to see a second defender jump him while his teammates rolled to the basket. This is a bit late because it was tricky throwing these around bigger defenders. On this play, the big man gives him space, so it's a much easier completion before the paint help arrives. Compare that to this coverage, where two huge defenders are involved, one pressuring Curry on the ball, while Durant sits in front of the roller, and it's a different pass. Another thing that changes his pick and roll dynamic is where many of these screens are set. Curry's near the logo here, and so it takes longer to hit screeners who aren't shooting threats when they roll.
You got to add another
This
roller
time
there.
Screens, and again,
Passes
size
are
makes it
too long.
uncomfortable enough to bypass Durant for a short roll pass, but he uses the look away and throws it out of bounds. So Steph saw most.
KYP, you're not trying to throw that to Zaza. I mean, everybody knows that. They're doubling him and letting Zaza try to get it.
Valuable passes on screen and rolls. It was often just a matter of finding a delivery angle so he could send it home. Again, this meant using those whip passes and hook passes that he loved with both hands.
That's what I'm telling you. Passing is the most important skill in basketball. If you can shoot it in the hoop, you better learn how to pass.
More audacious.
Passing is harder because the target is moving. That window, that volumetric circle I talk about, the volumetric sphere, it changes. So you have to process, is this guy, fast? Can he recover? Where should I throw it? Should I throw it to the front side hand, to backhand? Should I throw it to the open space? Should I lead him? Can he catch it? What is he going to do it? Once he catches it, can he dunk it? Is he going to, move the ball?
Off deliveries as well. Many teams simply trapped the Curry pick and roll.
KYP, know your personnel.
And that could stall the offense a touch. If Harden recovered on time here, this wouldn't be an open KD jumper, which is where Draymond's short roll passing became so critical, gashing teams in these 4-on-3s.
That's what I was talking about. You
Green's
need a short roll.
High-end vision and speed made him a phenomenal fit next to Curry, where he could pick apart defenses as a roll man when opposing teams tried to neuter Steph's three-point shooting. A great passing hub like Draymond isn't...
Like, if you had a big that can do that, I mean, the evolution of the game is happening. If you find a guy that's like Steph Curry, that's 6'7", slightly above average height with a slightly above average athleticism, he's going to break the whole game wide open.
Ideal partner for off-ball workhorses like Curry. He can capitalize on...
Like Trae Young is very, very similar to Curry, just smaller and weaker.
Gravity from the top, extra passes after Curry is trapped, or collapse the defense with the ball himself, setting up arguably the greatest perimeter finisher ever. This helped those Warriors teams put together phenomenal regular season offenses, and while they were still great in the playoffs, they fell back a little, commensurate with Curry's drop in scoring we saw earlier. Keep in mind, though, teams sold out to take away his scoring, so that huge off-ball effect made him a playmaking machine. Estimates of his shot creation land in the top 15 of all time, and it's hard to say how well that even accounts for his unique ability to stretch defenses. So there are lingering questions about his offensive impact in the playoffs, but before we get to those, we need to look at just how effective he was on the defensive end.
Oh, not very effective on the defensive end. More ads. Wow, this episode's really long.
Students with ADHD save 10 hours studying with this Chrome extension.
But no, by all... Oh, this is my.
Yeah, speak it to the mic.
I thought you were doing the Ricky Bobby thing, like covering my face.
Oh, this is my mic.
I got you. I'm feeling great, but I'm excited about the final. We got 4 ways to go, so I hope we get it done.
Well,
Come on. My thing says 4,400 kbs per second. I don't know if that's faster
They were
enough.
also a high-end defensive team. As one of the best defenders of the 21st century, Draymond Green led Golden State's switchable
I miss Damian Lillard.
end.
Nice behind the
and because
back.
the Warriors surrounded Curry with 4 players who were 6'6" or taller most of the time, it was common practice for teams to target Steph in the play. It's switchable, intelligent scheme on that end. And because the Warriors surrounded Curry with 4 players who were 6'6" or taller most of the time,
The surrounding cast, man. All versatile, all can play D.
it was common practice for teams to target Steph in the playoffs. The Cavs did this in bursts during all of their final matchups, looking for a switch onto the dangerous Kyrie Irving
Kyrie
or the
killed
much
him.
larger LeBron James, who could use his size to back Curry down into the post and force
Too
outbursts
little.
for himself. In the 2018 Western Finals, Houston hunted Curry even more since attacking weak spots with James Harden or Chris Paul was a core part of their offense. This strategy adds to Curry's physical wear and tear, potentially slowing down his attack and getting him into foul trouble.
Yep.
But otherwise, it wasn't enormously effective because Curry held up pretty well against even the game's best isolation scorers. Kyrie gives up on this one with Green finally shifted over, and against Harden, there were strong moments. He jabs at the ball twice and
ISOs with a
then
lot
Curry's
of
him and
one-on-one
takes away the ear
is
for an
it's
offensive
just not super effective because why is my internet stupid? It's just not that effective.
foul. Steph was pesky on the ball like this, using his hands quite a bit. The left hand slows down the driver, the right hand then controls him a little, and he was small enough to get away with this contact. He was actually really physical in general on defense, actively pawing at the ball, and
0 KBS, 1229, 1067,
bodying up ball handlers with
6477.
his hands high when they drove like this. He didn't have incredible lateral quickness. He goes to put some weight into Irving here and turns into a matador trying to recover, but he wasn't smoked off the dribble too frequently because of how active he was on the balls of his feet, his willingness to get physical, and his reaction time. Notice the really short steps, which helps him stay balanced so he can quickly change directions with the ball handle. You can see how sharp his reflexes are here, sliding with Harden's crossover immediately, bodying him hard, and then he smothers a shot at the end. Curry loved attacking the ball at the end of a move like this. He's a bit behind on this one, but ends up with a late strip. And his hands were active on the outside as well, preventing a step-back attempt on this play. Steph was often trying to overcome a size disadvantage. He wasn't going to throw off many shots vertically, so attacking the rock low like this gave him a chance, even if it led to some fouls in the process. That hand-eye coordination helped him connect on plenty of these when he was balanced and had a clear look at the ball, catching Leonard not once but twice in this sequence. He's completely beaten here, again grabs an arm to slow down the dribbler, and the hands save the play from behind. Because he was only 6'2", Curry was a mismatch for bigger players on the block. On this one, he tries to hold off LeBron, but James is too powerful, and so it's a foul. His countermeasure for this was to front the post hard and deny an entry pass in the first place, and because he had a high revving motor, he was pretty successful with this technique. Here he sits down to take away the entry, then works hard to track the ball at a different angle, and comes up with a steal.
There's nothing you can do at 6'2". You're just
pre-switching Curry here so he wouldn't be involved
using your teammates to help you. You gotta do it with the scheme. Yeah.
Steph could also get really physical with screeners, which helped avoid a switch and kept everyone under.
Like if this were a one-on-one, Kyrie Irving would kill Steph Curry.
Potential screeners and getting handsy with them opened up a few.
LeBron would kill Steph
when
Curry.
overplayed
KD
on
would
shoots
kill
like
Steph
this,
Curry.
He occasionally received a taste of his own medicine. Unsurprisingly, he was also physical chasing players off the ball. He could lean over his toes and get off balance like that. And again, here's some hand fighting and subtle holding to stay connected.
Patty
and then
Mills
on the
giving
ball
him a
where
taste
the
of his own
jabbing the
medicine.
rock And sliding to stay in front of the dribbler. When guarding the ball handler, he could power through some of these screens sometimes to stay with his man. And even if that didn't work, he was quite good about staying connected to the screener on a switch using his bag of tricks. I'd say he was generally good navigating ball screens, here steering the dribbler away from the screen by design, then activating those hands on the roll pass for another steal. On this one, he stepped up in front of the screen nicely to avoid it, and that contains everything well, although Curry gambles for a steal, and that exposes the Warriors in the paint. He actually rarely took overt gambles like that. He was selective about selling out for these sneak attacks.
Risk
And his
management.
ability to play passing lanes was based more on anticipation and reflexes than on risk-taking. This, again, made him similar to Bird. Their
Low
best defensive
risk.
strength was reading these kinds of passes and timing up interceptions without taking needless chances. This is a 3-on-1, and he spots the passer's eyes to make an incredible save off the lob, and then going the other way, turns it into 2 points himself.
Man, of
Steph
course
was
they're
also
trying to
dangerous,
lob it back to
seeking around
LeBron.
outlet passes like this, and yeah, that's probably going in, and it is time to dance on the floor. Here's one off the inbounds, and this time Curry wants to bring Clay into the party, and that team was just unfair. Between his active hands and his ability to jump passes like this, Curry landed in the 93rd percentile historically in steals during these years. He was also smart about timing up his double teams, and what's key here is that he keeps going after the first effort, saving a layup with the extra help. And he rarely missed these second and third efforts on a defensive sequence, flowing from one responsibility to the next. That's a decent closeout to end the possession, although I wouldn't say he was that effective closing out because his size made jumpers easier for shooters. His small stature was a limiting factor on paint rotations too, where he could slide into position but couldn't offer much resistance at the rim. Steph was generally on point when he needed to rotate into the lane like this, and that's far better than being bigger but late to arrive or blowing the assignment. Here's a nice example where he's early to help on the pick and roll, then gives extra effort to tag a cutter when the ball switches to the other side of the court. But still, he added basically zero rim protection on high leverage plays where he needed to plug up the back line. And despite his consistent effort, he had an occasional intentional lapse, focusing in on the ball too much and falling a few steps out of position. Impact metrics actually view him as a solid positive defender, although his overall playoff numbers are far more pedestrian than his incredible regular season stats. But even if injuries weren't the reason why, his missed time still skewed these impact numbers.
LeBron.
His teammates were able to inflate their plus-minus by playing weaker teams in early rounds.
Postseason and regular
But
season are
Steph's
completely
plus-minus
different
influenced
games.
Championship level opponents in the later rounds. If we calculated the numbers after Curry returned from his injuries, giving his teammates the same opponents as him, suddenly Steph looks like one of the most impactful playoff performers on record, even with a clear drop in 2016 compared to his surrounding seasons. And at least to me, that's a compelling signal that the extra defensive attention he received still shredded defenses, even if his scoring dipped as a result. Furthermore, in larger regular season samples, his numbers were still incredibly impressive against strong defenses when compared to weak ones, maintaining most of his volume and efficiency relative to other great players. There's also some evidence that he'll ramp up his scoring more when he shares the floor with weaker finishers. His volume with Durant and Thompson on the bench resembles video game levels, and these numbers are similar in a much larger regular season sample. Throughout all of these permutations, Golden State's efficiency with Curry on the court remained elite while they crushed their opponents. I do still have some concerns about his durability. Attacking him on defense and wearing down his legs seem to have some effect, but Curry's gravity is a constant phenomenon that made him, arguably, the most scalable offensive weapon in basketball history, making life easier for basically any other offensive star. He doesn't have the typical signs of an impact defender, but he also doesn't look like a negative on that end either. Instead, his incredible value comes almost entirely from his otherworldly shooting, off-ball impact, and that on-ball playmaking, which is a one-of-a-kind package that combine to make Steph Curry, perhaps, the best offensive player in NBA history.
Hell to the no.
Impact and that on-ball playmaking, which is a one-of-a-kind package.
Curry's greatest attributes, I think, like I said, motor. He definitely sucks up a lot of energy. He runs around a lot. He can shoot. But the greatest of all time, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is like a later version of LeBron. He can pass. He can overwhelm you one-on-one. He can bully you a little bit in the post, even though there's not a ton of post move. And his shooting is good enough. Like the later versions of Miami LeBron. But yeah, it ain't Steph Curry. It's not even close. He can barely blow past, like one-on-one. It's not a one-on-one nightmare all the time. There's a lot of guys that can clamp him up. Yeah. All right, guys. What do you guys think? I think it's yeah. Steph Curry is not the best offensive player ever. Greatness, yes, for sure. Transcendent, yes. What do you guys think? Let me know. Sorry about the internet. I upgraded my internet speed. YouTube's giving me problems. I guess I don't know. It's 45 kbs. Don't even know what that means. Until next time, take 14 minutes, 24 seconds, or 1% of your day to get better. Peace.